Welcome to the Open Apple Podcast, where we celebrate the Apple II. Whether you're a longtime user, a nostalgic visitor, or a newcomer to the community, join us as we share news and memories of Steve Wozniak's most famous personal computer.
Hello and welcome to Ron's Metal Roundtable Apple Assembly Lock. My name is Ken Gagne and I'm here to co-host with four fantastic people who all attended the in-person and online KansasFest 2024, that being the annual Apple II convention held not at Rockhurst University, but University of Springfield, Illinois.
University of Illinois, Springfield.
I always get those two mixed up.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, I am the one who should be sorry. That person who gently corrected me is Kat. Say hello, Kat.
Meow. Hi, I'm Kat. I do retro metal. It's less of a podcast and more of me failing at playing old games on the original hardware on Twitch. It's usually on Sundays. I haven't streamed for a month, so I can't wait to get back to it because I usually stream on Sundays and KansasFest.
Yay.
Yay.
Going counterclockwise around the screens as I see them on my window is Chris Torrance. Hi, Chris.
All right. Hi, everybody. I am Chris Torrance, and I have a video podcast called Assembly Lines, and the handle on there is CT6502, and I do kind of infrequent videos, sometimes monthly, sometimes not monthly, and lately I've been focusing on both product reviews and also my Apple II emulator that I've been writing. So, thanks.
And what's the name of that emulator?
That is Apple II TS, and you can get to it by apple2ts.com.
TS being TypeScript.
TypeScript, yes.
Fantastic. And then we also have Ron from Ron's Computer Videos.
It's true. It's true. Hey, everybody. It's Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. I'm not sure what else to say. But I do like a YouTube show, and occasionally folks are kind enough where I haven't worn out my welcome. They're kind enough to invite me over to make jokes and hang out. And I really want to thank the KFest committee for all their hard work and everything that they did to make both of these events successful. It was a lot of fun to be there in person and to get to meet everybody. Again, I did a little video about just talking to first timers, and they were like, it's just amazing. So it was great to be part of both. So thank you.
Yeah. That video, by the way, is great.
So that's why you didn't interview me.
No, you're like a millionth timer.
And we also have Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hello, I'm Paul. I'm Paul Hegstrom. I guess the main thing I do is the Retro Computing Roundtable in terms of podcast stuff. I did a podcast called Drop 3 Inches, which I have assured a couple of people who have asked me that, it's not quite over. It's just on hiatus. It's been on hiatus for many years, but I want to get back to it. So I'm going to keep saying I'm part of Drop 3 Inches until I somehow delete all the files. And Ken, I don't think you said what podcasts you were on.
No, I always save myself for last. Hi, I'm Ken Gagne, and I have hosted a variety of podcasts. The first podcast I ever launched was 13 years ago with my friend M. McGinnis. That called Open Apple, which Quinn Dunkey, also an alumnus of this roundtable, has co-hosted. I went from there to launch MS Challenge Talk, The Pubcast, IndieCider, Polygamer, which is my longest running show. That went off the air 2 years ago yesterday after an 8-year run. And right now I'm in my 7th year of Transporter Lock, which is a Star Trek podcast. So 1 out of 6 shows was actually retro computing related.
So did you see the trailer for the new season of Strange New Worlds?
I saw that there are trailers for season 3 of Strange New Worlds, season 5 of Lower Decks, and the Section 31 movie, and I have so far successfully avoided all of them.
You're one of those.
Yeah. Yes. I am. So although I was a gregarious introduction to this podcast, I'm going to hand it over to Paul. Paul, Chris, and Kat are the actual committee members here. Ron and I are just tag-alongs, and Paul's the one who's actually hosting the StreamYard. So I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Okay. And this, by the way, the Megapodcast is not traditionally just like an open committee meeting. It is, in fact, supposed to be sort of like, reflections of attendees at the
Right.
at the event. It's only just, it happens to be that a lot of the committee members also do this kind of podcasty stuff.
It's not unusual that in any volunteer community, a select few do disproportionately a lot. And so, of course, somebody would run an event and host a podcast and publish a magazine and have a stream and edit a book and create an emulator. So, yeah, that's us. Hi, guys.
All right. So, Paul, where do we want to go with this?
That is a good question. I think I did just want to sort of emphasize that Ron's video that he just posted of the review of the days, it was great. It was nice to relive what happened. He sort of showed what was on the garage giveaway, and then a little fast video of it happening.
That was awesome.
That was nice.
Yeah, it's fun.
I was talking to somebody. It was actually he was a first timer, and he had made a map and a plan of like exactly where he was going to go as soon as he was released, and he
amazing.
did. He did. I mean, like I saw when it started, he's just like boom, 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 boom. It was great.
That is fantastic. I wish I could have seen that map.
I took a picture of it. I don't remember whose it was, though.
Yeah, that was Kevin, right? Kevin Powers.
Was it Kevin Powers?
Yeah, he was like he came in just gangbusters. Like, I'm here. Let's go. Let's do the thing. He was all in immediately. I think most of our new attendees were, which was really awesome. Right, Ron, I love how you connected with the new attendees and got their kind of like response, because I remember in 2016 being that new attendee. And then I ended up on a couple of podcasts because I also came in like a house on fire. But it's so good to hear from people who've never done this before, and I think that really your video is really going to hopefully show people that this is not like a big speed. This is not a bunch of people that's been doing this.
Not a click.
It's not a click. Yeah, thank you. That's the word I was.
Yeah. But I only got to speak to 3 of the new people. There were a couple of other new people there, but they were like, no, I'm not a camera person, and that's okay.
That's fair.
So I'm like, that's totally fair. But thank you. But answer the question anyway. Tell me what it is. The camera's off, but tell me anyway as feedback, because feedback is a gift. What it is that you really enjoyed about this more than anything. And everybody said it was the people. It was the interaction. It was the connections they made with other folks in the hobby, and that you can have those connections and stuff online. And I know a lot of people that come to this maintain those friendships and maintain those connections throughout the year. But to be able to get there in physical space and work on projects with your friends, to just sit there and have a meal, that it's like it's a tonic. And that's what overwhelmingly people said, is that it was just about being there and all the connection of it. So it's great that this is a place that people can maybe get away from other life stress and come there and then stress out about why their power supply isn't working or something like that.
And then they take it to Sark and he's like, psh, 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 done.
Yeah, there you go. Go have fun.
Go play.
Yeah.
That was a great little anecdote, of having 2 disk drives to fix. One was fixed by Sark while simultaneously showing the owner how to fix his. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's what, like when I was in the repair room, and I was my disk drive was having issues, and I started taking mine apart, and I can't remember names because all of KansasFest is a blur. And I was showing him like, this is how it comes apart, and this is this is this, and this is that, and this is what you don't want to touch except with a Q-tip full of alcohol. And if you want, he asked me about soldering. I'm like, this is a good soldering iron to start with. And at some point it occurred to me that I am on the other side of this conversation I was on,
right,
8 years ago. And that's the magic of KansasFest, is that you can make those connections and you just absorb all the knowledge.
Yep. It's what did our friends say? It's like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to go to a different room. I always feel like when I go to KansasFest that I feel like the dumbest person in the room, but it like in a very positive way, because I know that I'm going to learn something. I know that I'm going to experience something that, especially with this hobby, just because you walk into somebody's room and they might have like some Power Macintosh clone and they're running BOS or something, and they'll talk to you about how they got that installed. Or you walk down to the repair room and I got to sit there, and Sark was like, check out this Amiga stuff that I've got set up.
Oh, the
And
Amiga was.
Yeah,
I know this is sacrilegious, but that was super. Only because we had the Amiga, and then we had the Mac emulator running on the Amiga, and then we had the Apple II emulator running on the Mac emulator running on the Amiga, and then we were trying to figure out if we could find the Burroughs emulator that somebody had displayed at KFest in like 2016, and if we could run that on the Apple II, and see how many ways how far we could go with the inception.
Mm-hmm. But it's great. You just have those little experiences like that.
I learned how to take off and desolder and put on surface mount caps
this year.
Yay! That's awesome.
Yeah, this year. Yeah, Sark. I brought my Super Nintendo and my Super Game Boy because they both needed caps, and because my nephew loves my old video games, so I have to take care of them. And I'm like, don't just do this. And that's the thing. I said to Sark, don't just. He's like, I'll do it. I'm like, no, don't just do this. Show me how to do this, because I want to be able to do this for myself. I don't want to have to wait a year and then run down the hall at KansasFest with a pile of stuff going, Sark, Joe, help me.
Yeah, I think that like freeform solder fest that we had actually was pretty cool.
That was so good. Yeah, that worked out so well.
Yeah. Because people could just bring whatever they wanted to, and there was people to help, and I think it was just, I don't know, maybe more interesting in some sense. I guess maybe there were some people there who didn't get the chance to solder on a kit or something, but it's okay. So
there was plenty of repair stuff going around, and people that were like, more than anything, I think that there were several first timers there that had equipment that were like, I want to test this. I want to figure out what's going on. I had my 2GS back in the room, and he was like, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what's wrong with my machine. I was like, did you check the power supply? It was like, no, but I can't because there's not even a power supply in it. And I said, well, let me go get my power supply.
That's my problem.
Let me go get my RAM. Let me go get this. Let me go get that. You need a key puller for that keyboard. I'll go get my key puller. So it was like a stone soup kind of thing where all the tools descended down there in the living room. So that way that everybody could kind of make use of everybody's stuff. So it was knowledge, and it was like all the tools and stuff. So it was a really cool thing that kind of happened. I know normally it's the kit stuff, and the kit stuff's fun, but this was fun too.
Yep.
I remember my first year, that's what the Solder Fest was. I think there were some kits, but most people just hung out and did their own. I think Stu was helping me make a cable that I needed. Quinn and a bunch of other, but that was the year they had the Provets there, and they were like hardcore trying to get that thing up and running. So yeah, no, it was awesome. Just being able to pull, because I think somebody needed a key puller, and I'm like, here. And then later on, we were up in the repair room, and somebody was talking about plastic JB Weld model airplane plastic melt, and I reached into my bag of tools, and I'm like, yeah, here, I brought it with me, and they're like, what the? I was dubbed the bag of holding.
Nice.
It's going to become a toolbox of holding, because I have too many tools. Every time I come back from KansasFest, I buy more tools, and now I have too many tools, and they don't fit in the drawer anymore. KansasFest is dangerous,
but in a good way.
I guess there's a thing that every year, every time we do a kind of wrap up like this, it's reiterated for people who haven't gone that when you arrive, it's sort of like, I mean, I guess what I wanted to say, I guess, was that I remember being hesitant to go myself, because it's like, what a weird event. I mean, and I'm stuck there for a whole week. I just don't know, and so I got a single so I could hide, and, but when you get there, the cool thing is that everybody's already like, they're already your friend. I mean, like, they may not know you, but you're all like invested in this weird corner of the world, and so it's a very sort of impressive effect that suddenly, like, all of these people care about this stuff too. I mean, and they don't know all the same stuff, so you can trade information. But yeah, anyway,
it's also remarkable the flow of time. I mean, the pandemic made everything weird, but even beyond that, there was one moment at this year's in-person K-Fest where I was coming back from somewhere, and I was walking to the dorm, and Steve Human is outside, waiting for his negative test before he goes inside. I was like, "Hey, Steven, great to see you again." He's like, "Oh, hey, Ken, how you doing?" I was like, "I'm good. We missed you last year. I'm glad you're back. What's it been, like 2 years?" And he said, "It's been 5."
Yeah.
I was like, "Really? I haven't seen you since KFest 2019?" And like, usually if I don't see somebody for 5 years, I have to be like, "Remind me who you are again."
Mhm.
But at KFest, for most people, just like everybody leaves such an impression on each other that it feels like you've always known each other and you just saw each other yesterday, whether it's been 1 year since the last KFest or 5 years since their last one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
totally
I think
true.
that's true. Yep.
So,
Yep.
and it's not a cult.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Not a cult, not a cult, not a
Well,
cult.
at least the showers were better this year, so that was.
No, the new facility was gorgeous. It
Yeah, I think
was
that helped.
just, elevators and 0 stairs anywhere, and
the carts that they had for people to bring their stuff in.
and
That
yeah,
was
just
huge.
the openness of the space.
Yeah. Even the food was better.
Oh, the food was way better.
There were 0 required stairs, but there were stairs, and I
Yeah.
often used the stairs.
There were
because I kind
stairs,
of liked
yeah,
them.
yeah.
I got those stairs in every day. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, see, you're better. You are all better humans than I. I was like,
Yeah.
and doors that open for you if you're carrying stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point during the week, I got the Galaxy Brain idea. I made sure that, because you had to, for the doors you had to boop into, I made sure that my badge was like right at the right level. So all I had to do was lean over and do this, and the door would open for me. And so if I was carrying stuff, I'd just lean, and it would go
that was
boop,
great.
and it would open. And I was just like, Galaxy Brain.
Yeah, there are a couple of places where this just exceeded expectations. I mean, we did a lot of research ahead of time, but still, it was better than. There were little details that were better than we hoped. That big space turned out to be really good, kind of like central event space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And at the previous location, the doors were locked, and you had to slide a card. And so if you're carrying like a Lisa, and
Yes.
yeah, so.
My Lisa and my what is it, the all-in-one crazy,
Oh, the
it's
Molar
like
Mac.
my K Pro 3, my Molar Mac, and my I should have made more than one trip.
I think the Molar Mac is if I'm not mistaken, that is the heaviest Mac there's ever been. I think
The Molar Mac is
yeah.
ridiculous. But that was one of the things that people really like. A couple of returning attendees who had experience with Rockhurst, that was one of the things they said was, there's not a card key reader every 10 feet.
Right.
And you can it's much easier to get around the building. And I mean, it was harder to see who was home unless you stuck your head in the pod, which I think a lot of people started doing.
Ron's got good ideas
But
there.
it's a lot easier to get around the building and see, what was, it's like, I have to walk up the stairs, I have to boop, and then do that, and then it was, you didn't have to do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they even turned off the boop card for the elevator, so
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting that you had to tap your card to go up the stairs to the second floor, but not tap your card to use the elevator to get to the second floor.
Right.
which is why I kept using the elevator. You
Right.
see.
They're only trying to catch healthy crooks. They
The worst.
if you were like not doing so great, then yeah, that's
But to have the option for our people who really needed it, I know it was great.
Oh,
The
yeah.
elevator was greatly appreciated. The much more private showers. I saw a number of people said to me, "I had the first hot shower I've ever had at K-Fest."
Yeah. Plus, I think having the Great Hall on the same floor was huge too, because I think there were some times where people just weren't willing to come downstairs, maybe for whatever reason at Rockhurst, and I think there were, everybody pretty much came to all the talks, from what I could tell.
Mhm.
Here's why. Rockhurst, very cool. I have not been to K-Fest as many as you guys have been. You guys have a different connection with that place than I do.
Mhm.
I only attended 2 K-Fests in person there, but I do like I like it. It's very home. It feels like an old timey dorm experience, because it literally is. But the problem is that all of the experiences are choppy. So Garage Giveaway is one section with seating that has people gravitate to that. The living room is one section that has people gravitate to that. And then you have people that hang out in their rooms and do stuff. Then you've got downstairs where the talks are, and you've got people that go down there and gravitate to that area. And it creates these kind of like spaces between people. And I think that this year, by having, basically you had two options, and it was kind of like there was the foyer kind of area that feeds into what became like living room / dining room / everything space. And then you had the rooms. So you really just had kind of two spaces that people occupied. And I think that encouraged more people that it's not like everything is right here. If I just come down here, I'm going to get fed here. I'm going to get entertained here. I've got all my social outlet is here. And then if I'm tired, then I can go back and recharge, maybe work on a project, have those smaller kind of interactions with people. And then when I feel better, then I come back. And the flow of that was really, really great. And people commented on that as well. So I think that the new place, really great. It's a different experience, but I think so very much in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I've having been thrown the reins, I have done nothing with them but just flail them around in the air.
I mean, that's good. Then I kind of going back to what I was about to say when we decided to actually, start this thing, and going back to Ron's, thing about the people and KansasFest people take care of each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If somebody couldn't make it over to the student union because they were in the middle of a project, or they maybe had little mobility issues, everybody let me pick you up something here, people, I know people, we picked some stuff up for people, and and it's everybody, when people pick stuff up for me at Walmart or Target or whatever, people offer rides to other people. The biggest thing that I think one of the kind of fears we had as the committee was that the major airport was a little farther away in St. Louis. And what just made my heart just overflow was how everybody came together in the ride sharing coordination channel. And then I think they made a spreadsheet, and everybody just came together and made sure that everybody got there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all on the attendees. Again, KansasFest people take care of each other.
I'll give you an example of that, not as far as the St. Louis transit goes, because I drove myself from Chicago, but I've been looking for a CD that Juice GS used to sell 24 years ago called The Complete Lamp. And complete is not spelled the way you think it should be. It's COMPLEAT, which actually is a word. Can't find it anywhere. I'm not as interested in the specific contents, because though the files are on the Internet Archive, there are lots of places, but I want the CD. I want to know how those contents were structured and packaged and delivered. That's what I want. Can't find it anywhere. I've put it on Slack, on Facebook, that I'm looking for this, can't find it. Didn't have any luck at this KFest either. But Greg Nelson, who went to his first KFest in 1994, and has been going almost every year since then for 31 years now, came up to me and said, "Hey, Ken, I don't have the complete lamp, but I do have this CD wallet of all these other discs. You're welcome to image any ones that you want." And I flipped through them, and I recognized every single one he had, but some of them I had not seen in 24 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I immediately grabbed a whole bunch of them, popped them in my USB-C disk drive that I travel with, ripped them, and gave the originals back to him. And so now I have those. I haven't checked to see if they're available anywhere else online. These could be very common. They could be very rare. I don't know. But the point is, somebody now has that data, and it's me. And I've already shared some of it with Paul to make sure that it's in multiple hands.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I didn't get the thing I was looking for, I did get a lot of things I wasn't looking for. And that's pretty awesome.
Cool.
Also, I should maybe just add an extra thumbs up to Greg because he audio recorded the audience of of what was happening throughout the event, and then gave it to me. And so there were places like we were able to hear the audience applaud Jordan Mechner's talk because I had his recording of it. because it didn't come through the Zoom microphone. So
How fascinating.
yeah.
That's funny because I saw Greg with his headphones on, and what I thought he was doing at first, I eventually saw the mic, was, as you all know, when we first arrived at the campus, the main hall where the presentations were had a suboptimal audio setup, which was eventually rectified, and everybody lived happily ever after. But for the first 2 sessions or so, I had trouble hearing people. And so what I thought Greg was doing was I thought he was listening to the live stream on YouTube
Mhm.
while watching the event in person. Because as we found out this past weekend at the virtual KFest,
Mhm.
the recordings of those talks had better audio than the talks themselves.
Though there was I must admit, a little bit of audio manipulation, like de-echoing software applied to that too. but it turned out good. I mean, and it was neat to be able to experience some of those too. Even the ones that I saw,
Yeah.
being able to hear them again is nice. And in some cases, not miss stuff.
Thank you for doing that post-production so rapidly. I mean, you not only exported the videos, but you improved them. I did not expect that. Thank you for taking the time to do that.
Yeah, there was the one in particular, I think, with Jordan Mechner's talk. We had some technical issues at the beginning that basically he couldn't screen share, and he tried to send us his slides, but that didn't work. And so he had some things prepared, but then he couldn't use them. And I think in the end, both I and he seem to think that it was better this way anyway, because the stuff that was on the slides was stuff that he talked about before. But I was able to take the slides, after the fact and sort of embed things when he was talking about it. So
I couldn't tell the difference. I thought it was a great presentation.
You know what? Now that you mentioned it, Paul, when I saw one of those slides pop up, I thought, oh, I must have missed that when it happened the first time. It was so intuitive and so natural. I didn't even realize that you had done that.
Yeah, excellent.
Did we actually get his slide deck, and
Yeah.
can we share it? Okay, so we could share that.
We could,
also.
yeah.
That'd be good. Yeah. Same thing with, I think we already shared Rob's, right? Rob Gamel.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, Reigns. Maybe what I'll do is ask people to say what they, just a session that stood out, a session or event or something that stood out. So maybe I'll go around in the order I see people on the screen and start with Ron.
Oh gosh, I was gonna go like this. If I can't see you, you can't see me, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work for the cat either.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say there was a really great session that was put on. There's this guy. He's wrote this emulator. It runs in a web browser, so you can play around with Apple II stuff. He's added a bunch of new functionality to it. That one was really great. I thought I'd just get that out of the way for you, Chris.
Bonus.
But I think something that really is one of those things that we need more competition in this area is with like drive emulation, things like that, and especially devices that make it easy for me to have one thing on my desk that does a couple of different things well. And so there was a great presentation about a new device that basically lets you do sort of the floppy, the flux capture, and then also is a emulator for drives as well. That
That's
one was
not-
a lot of fun.
Giachi.
Because last year it was like a big mess of wire. It was just like it was a board and like a million bodges and stuff. And this year it's a cute little thing that fits in like a little tiny box. So it's, and more than that, that's what I like to see is like all the follow-up videos where it's our follow-up presentations where it's like, here's this cool thing that I saw last year, and here's more information. Here's where my journey has led me, because it's nice to see, and it gives a lot of continuity in the event too, to just see that people are sticking with the hobby and people are sticking with these projects because it just really speaks to them. It's really interesting.
That is actually an interesting point that I hadn't really noticed exactly in this way, but a number of the presentations this year were follow-ups on last year. So Apple, the emulator, Apple II TS, that was followed up. Nox or KS was followed up. The Apple Teeny that John Flanagan was doing was followed up, and John
Jay's presentation
Jockeys,
from the live, about more stuff for VidHD and
Yeah, somebody actually commented that they said, "Hey Ken, I missed your annual digital nomad update," and I was like, I did that once. I mean, if you want to see where I am every day, go to roadbits.net. But I don't want to bore K-festers with my travels every year, especially when they're not all Apple II related. And even when they are, I don't want to just make it an annual thing and be like, hey, guess who I hung out with last month?
It still didn't stop me from stealing Ken's phone every day and making like a video of myself in hopes that I end up in like 1 second of 2024.
That didn't actually happen, did it?
No, I would never. No, that's such a betrayal of trust. They're in your hidden folder. If you just go in, no.
Oh my God, Ron!
Well, listen, I was in the bathroom. I dropped the camera. I didn't mean to. I mean, I got it before it swirled all the way down.
Potty humor.
Yes, literal.
I mean, we all pretend we're 12 at K-Fest, so
True.
it hasn't worn off yet.
All right, so let's see. Maybe we can move to Chris. What anything stand out more than the others?
Yeah, actually, before I even say that, I was just running the numbers on our registrations just because I was curious what the final totals actually were. So it looked like we had 174 people who registered for the remote, so the virtual event. We had 74 people who registered for in-person. And then I was trying to figure out how many people were new, and it's either somewhere between 10 and 12 of those 74 were actually first timers. So
Wait, you know what? I really appreciate that you said that, Chris, because I had a brain fart. I was counting how many people attended this year based on the roster in the mini manual you sent me, but that doesn't include people who stayed off site.
Right.
Exactly. Correct.
Yes.
And
there were
really important.
Several people, and then a couple people, like Carrie, who just came down for the day, right? And I think there was somebody else who just happened to be driving. Who was that? Who was just happened to be driving from Chicago to St. Louis and found out about the event like that day and just stopped in for an hour.
Yeah.
And
I didn't see that happen.
I can't remember his name now.
I know Jeremy from Jeremy's Retro Bar stopped by and just day tripped.
Yep.
And he's from St. Louis, just drove in, drove home. Yeah.
Yep. And then we had the police come by and
that was pretty excellent, actually. Like across the room, I saw like someone was talking to the police officer, and I'm like, all right, what do we do? Are we in trouble?
Yeah, they were super into it.
He was super enthusiastic about it.
He had stopped by the night before and had a million questions because he was like, I found out this was going on, and immediately came over here. And he was like, tell me what time is this stuff going on during the day? And I tried to like just say, oh yeah, like you really should talk to the organizers because they could probably, if you wanted to. And he was like, no, you're just an attendee. You can just tell me about it. So, I was like, well, what's your shift tomorrow? And he goes like 6 to 2 or something like that. And I said, well, 6 will be like mealtime, but come by anyway and just hang out and all that. Yeah. And I was like, and go online and follow all the stuff. And so it was cool that he actually came back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think he's planning on coming next year. And I think Sean was going to try to hook him up with a 2E.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
I regret that I didn't take the opportunity to also speak with the police officer and take a photo, because that would have been an awesome just little slice of life to put in Juice.gs.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm usually an extrovert. I don't mind talking to strangers, but when they have guns,
yeah,
it was holstered the entire time I was talking to him. So
until I walked up.
Yeah, the impressive thing was he was in full uniform.
No, it was cool that someone from the university was just like, dude, I am actually into this. This is amazing.
Well, speaking of university staff, I was walking out of the Union Center one day with Mark Lemmer and a couple of others, and there's an administrative staff person walking in, going to her desk. She doesn't work in the cafeteria. She works in the administration. And she stops in her tracks because she sees my shirt, and she says, "What's KansasFest?" And I said, "Oh, it's a celebration of this great state." And she said, "You're in Illinois." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah, that was amazing.
Took a wrong turn.
He was kind of into it too, though. So
it happens.
Let's see. Yeah. So anyway, back to, I guess, the talks. So I was also going to mention Thomas Giacchi's talk on his emulator and floppy disk imager. I think it's come a huge, long way since last year. It's like a real product, and so that's very cool. But another talk that I thought was really interesting was Yerzy Dolezal, and I'm
That
sure
was so interesting.
Yeah, so he was talking about just computers basically behind the Iron Curtain was the name of his talk, and it was it wasn't really Apple II related necessarily because they couldn't really get Apples over in East Germany and Czechoslovakia, and but it was a whole bunch of other computers, some of which I'd heard of and others that I'd never ever heard of, and he did a really cool job of explaining not only about the computers but also just about like the economic kind of forces that made it hard to get the computers and how they had to kind of circumvent the laws to get those type of things back in the 80s and 90s. So
it was the first 20 minutes is the political situation was tense.
Yeah.
And then computers, it was like, but it was really interesting, like you were saying, because it was like, oh, we had to exchange the local currency for US dollars. So this was one kind of black market transaction. And then you had to buy the machine at a greatly inflated price. And then you had to all of the payola to get it back.
Yeah.
Like you had to really be committed.
And the fact that he gave his talk on a MacBook that was about 6 inches
thick.
I was like, I was all about.
Amazing.
Well, it was running like Tiger.
Yeah.
And
I was like, I think I said to Ron, is that thing still running PowerPC? That's awesome.
Yeah, and I never got a straight answer from him as to whether that was his daily work machine or whether that was just a joke almost that he brought just for that.
He's like the Mac version of George R.R. Martin. It's just like if it does what you need it to do and there's no distraction,
stick with it.
Do it.
Yeah.
WordStar. I think George R.R. Martin uses WordStar.
Yeah.
There you go.
I had to give him credit too for giving a presentation in not his native language in front of all of us. Like that had to be so nerve-wracking.
Yeah. But it was his second year, right? He was here last year and came back this year and brought his daughter, and
she had a blast.
Yeah.
Yep.
She played the video game marathon. She entered and won the door contest.
Yep.
She was on the main.
Very surprised by that.
She was on the arcade thing all weekend.
Uh-huh.
All week. Yeah. You couldn't pry her off the MAME cabinet. So.
Excellent. Okay, we can keep moving around. Kat, what stood out to you?
What I loved was the presentations from our featured speakers, from Rich and Rob, and it wasn't about the technical stuff. It was about the goofy stories that surrounded, let's go steal the pirate flag from the Macintosh building, and this is my interaction with Steve Jobs. It's not just about technical drawings and prototypes and data sheets and whatnot. There's so much cool lore and stories around the people that brought us these machines, and being able to now have that archived because we record all this stuff for that I think is possibly even more valuable than the prototype 2Cs that were there, or whatever. It's because that's something you can only get from someone like Rich or Rob.
Yep.
So I was just enjoying the heck out of him telling the stories of this is all the stupid stuff we did at Apple back in the day, and it was like, yes, this is what I want to hear about.
Yeah. And it was fantastic that Rich was up for just being there for the whole event. I mean, so. Oh yeah,
he had I think he had come be a rock star for 5 days.
Yeah. But I'm sure many other people had got other stories too that we didn't record.
I know, that's what I wonder about that, but it was so interesting, and the fact that he was wearing all of his vintage Apple T-shirts,
that
was
was great.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, well, you took mine, the one I was going to call out. I'll come up with another one. Meanwhile, Ken, what stood out for you?
I'll give you 3 examples.
Okay.
My favorite in-person session, my favorite online session, and my favorite session moment.
Okay.
Favorite in-person session. Back in April of 2000, 24 and a half years ago, JuiceGS reported on this college kid who was trying to port Mario from the 8-bit Nintendo to the Apple II GS. And this year, he attended his first KansasFest.
Aw, that's awesome.
And presented a hardware abstraction layer that allows the Apple II GS to run 8-bit Nintendo games. That is Lucas Scharenbroek attending his first K-Fest, enabled in part by the event's move to a new venue that is closer to where he lives, which was true for many first-timers this year. And it was just awesome to see this effort, because I've always, in my mind, likened the 8-bit Nintendo to the 8-bit Apple II, both running 6502, and the Super Nintendo to the Apple II GS, both running 65816. But he was porting 8-bit Nintendo games to a 16-bit Apple II GS, and I can see now how the extra processing power would be needed to run games that were never intended for that system in the first place. And so I've been emailing with him on and off for a while, and to finally meet him was awesome, to see his work in person, because he's presented virtually at previous KansasFest. And I just really enjoyed sitting in the back of the hall with him and chatting with him about his work. Favorite online presentation, I believe this was just yesterday as we're recording this, Micah Cowan is talking about Tacky, his text animation kit. It looks like it all runs from basic once the library is loaded, and allows you to just do these really cool things where, like, out of a paragraph of 40-column text, some of it is blinking like in a marquee or a ticker. And then if it's a text adventure, for example, you can type open door and the word door in the description actually swings open. It was just very easy to grok what he was doing and how he was doing it. And that's what I really appreciated also about Lucas's presentation. Lucas started off with a very visual and accessible, here's what I did. And then he went into, here's how I did it, which some other presentations like Stephen Heumann also did, which I really appreciated. My favorite session moment was John Flanagan talking about his Apple Teeny and how he'd been working so hard on getting it ready in time for KansasFest. And there was a revision of the board that he could not get to work. It was working the day before, and then he went and plugged it in, and it didn't work. He's like, what's wrong with my hardware? And he finally figured out his cat had peed on it.
Yeah.
I know. I felt so bad for him. I was just like, yeah, they do that.
I can imagine how frustrating that must have been for him. I remember 24 years ago, Sheppy complaining on Genie about how his wife's cats had just thrown up on his Apple II GS programmer's reference manual. And he was so upset about that. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. And so from my perspective, I can kind of laugh at it because I've never heard of this happening to a piece of Apple II hardware before. But I also am glad I wasn't in John's shoes, because that, especially with an event coming up, you have a deadline to get this thing ready. It's not arbitrary. And that must have been very frustrating. And I hope that he and his cat have made up.
Plus the cat barfed in his shoes too. So
he didn't say that, did he?
You never met the cat I had before.
But that's a total cat move.
Yeah, so I said the late great Othello, he barfed on everything. I'm pretty sure he did barf on a couple of my apples. You learn to clean it up and move on. But he never barfed on any of the boards.
I'd been following a little bit the progress of the Apple Teeny in the Slack, and a few days, we saw this happen. It's like he reported, okay, my cat peed on the board, and he got a hold of us and said, all right, I'm going to have to cancel my talk. He was really fairly dejected, but managed to get it going just in time to bring it, and so we brought him back in. And yeah, I mean, I think there were a couple like this. Like Rob Kim also was working on a 2C video adapter thing that was also like just finished just in time. And it was kind of neat to see all these things, like, as they're reaching completion, what was that? The A2C Tangy Pack, that was his.
Yeah,
But-
he was. I think he was finishing it on Monday night. I think we were debugging stuff with it on Monday night.
Oh yeah, he tried it out with my 2C Plus and it didn't work because we think because it's accelerated, and and yeah, he was saying in his talk how he just was daily having to update the firmware, and there was no easy way to do it, so you had to bring it to him to have it updated.
It was funny to talk to Rob for a bit because I think everybody, not just at KansasFest, but especially at KansasFest, can forget that not everybody knows everything that you know. And there is a variety of very deep technical expertise at KFest, which I, not being a software developer, sometimes have a little bit of trouble getting into because sometimes other people forget that. When I was talking to Rob, it was a kind of the opposite for once because he knows his hardware so well, but he wasn't sure, like, how do I go about getting the word out about this thing? Like, where do I put the files? How do I get people to sign up to buy one? How do I get their money? I was like, oh, well, you can have them sign up for a MailChimp list. And he's like, what's MailChimp? And I was like saying MailChimp and SurveyMonkey and GitHub and CrowdSignal and all these other things. And obviously he knew GitHub, but there's just a lot of marketing tools, which my background gave me some minimal experience with that he didn't have. And so I was happy. I was like, oh, well, get out your notepad. I'm happy to walk you through this. And like he was saying, Ken, if you put up something on A2 Central, can you get those names for me of who's interested? And I said, well, Rob, I will take information from you and distribute it to other people. I will help you get the word out, but I don't want to be the intermediary of getting information back from them and giving it to you. Here's the tools you can use to do that, which will empower you and allow you to have direct access to information much more quickly and reliably. He's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was like, right. That's what I love doing. Like, I think a lot of my career and a lot of my hobbies are about storytelling and especially empowering other people with the tools they need to tell their stories. And sometimes that's, a Google form.
It's true. It's almost as if these connections extend beyond software and hardware. That it's the people It's like your network is your net worth.
No. I go to KFest for the computers.
Oh. Fair enough.
What about you, Paul?
One thing that was new and interesting was the repair panel. I could see that going. I can see that going on into the future productively. I mean, this was a sort of a first trial run, but we just had a few people up there. Ron was one of them, fielding questions basically. So it was who was it? It was Joe and Ron and Sark and DJ, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
They came later because it was like they were busy somewhere fixing things.
Yeah.
And I think crowbar them out of out of the shop.
Yeah, and neither of them are that enthusiastic, I think, about public speaking, but at the same time, I think this was really a good way to kind of distribute knowledge that if multiple people have the same kind of question, they're already doing that a little bit, and Sark and DJ are doing this already a little in the repair room, but the hope is that many people have to fix their disk drives, and 20 people can be at the repair panel learning how to fix their disk drives at the same time. So I liked that as an experiment. I think it worked pretty well. What else did I want to call out? Oh, the print shop I thought was pretty neat. So Melody and April, they were going to present this in person, but then last second couldn't come, so they presented it virtually. But so they went over a little bit over the history of the print shop, which turned 40, this year also. But one thing that I thought was maybe the coolest was they were printing from an emulator to an actual printer. They were trying to print. I think they were trying to print to an image writer, but they succeeded. They didn't succeed in that, but did succeed in printing to a newly manufactured Epson, which is a direct descendant of the MX80 or whatever that we all knew. So that was neat. Just sort of like the connection of the emulator to the outside world.
Paul, you're not going to mention the Dungeons and Dragons.
I should. Yeah, that was.
Question?
I didn't. That was my first time doing the Dungeons and Dragons. So Sean Fahey ran a D&D campaign, and I think he's been doing that annually.
Yeah.
I only joined this year, so I haven't been doing it in the past. And some of the people who were playing characters in the past weren't there this time. But was I the only new one there?
No, Peter had he had never ever played before
I feel like I walked by and you were all press ganging him into playing.
Yeah, he was very hesitant, and it turned out
he was great though.
He kind of stole the show. Yeah, I think we were all trying to bring out our inner Carrington, who has played in the past and made a complete hash of poor Sean's adventure, and Peter did the same thing to the point where the guy who was playing the wizard, and I won't name him, but he ended up banging his head against the wall in frustration at the crazy things that Peter and the rest of us were doing. And
was he playing a Kender? Please tell me he was playing a Kender.
No. What was Peter? He was a fighter, but he spent most of his character spent most of his time drunk and needing to go pee, I think. That drove a lot of his motivation. So
that is the best kind of character to play.
And he also didn't wait around very much for, like, he was not up for discussion. So, like, everybody was debating what to do, and he just went and did it.
Pretty much.
But if there was some danger to walk into, that's the direction he went.
Let's go.
Leroy Jenkins.
So that's I didn't realize that was his first time playing, but that was a beautiful beautiful thing. But no, that was a lot of fun. I think I suspect that there's room for a number of other people, and the facilities, the UIS building has a great place for this. I mean, it's like a giant table. I suppose it feels kind of medieval, right?
That table was gorgeous.
There was a whiteboard that you could take notes on and draw pictures. And that's great.
Yeah. So it's quite possible that we can't actually run a D&D session with 80 people or whatever, but
that's okay.
Anyone who's interested should try that out, and we'll probably have other things happening as well. But that was
we did
fun.
Something similar to like an 80-person Dungeons & Dragons game when I ran those Parsley text adventures.
That was really fun.
Super fun. I remember those.
Do that again.
Yeah, you need to do that again.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah.
So, I the way I first encountered that game, it was very rapid. Like, people would get in line at a microphone at a conference if they wanted to play, and they would say into the mic what they wanted to do, and the MC, like I was, would report what happened, and then the next person in the line, boom, boom, boom. And what I found happened was I ran this thing 3 years at KansasFest, and each year it got more and more ponderous, where like everybody was collaborating. Mm-hmm. So it became less like Twitch plays Pokemon and more like, how do we game the system?
Yeah.
And I would stand there for like 2 minutes waiting for the next move. And I personally found that less fun. I'm not going to say there's a wrong way to play a game, but if I'm going to be the one emceeing it, I want to have fun too, and that wasn't fun for me.
Yeah, you got to take it up.
30 seconds, and then you move on to the next person.
10 seconds.
I would limit it to 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Okay, I don't.
Yep.
What I seem to remember, I don't know if I think this was this same scenario. Like, there was a spaceship or something, and we had to like move from floor to floor or whatever. And what ended up happening is that it was just like the players would go, or the player or protagonist or whatever would just sort of go here and then back and then here and then back, because like no one could decide where they wanted to go and had different ideas about this. So it was just like no progress was made.
Nobody had a like mental picture of what we were doing. So I think I feel like I remember this too. Like, we ended up we started like drawing pictures to try, because we were going back and forth because nobody had a mental map, because everybody only had like a tiny piece of the puzzle.
Right, but that's part of the fun. Is like when one player says go west, and the next player says go east, and the whole day is like, no, we're trying to do that. And like, are you trolling us, or you're trying to push us in a different direction? What's going on here?
Yeah. So yeah, Twitch plays Pokemon.
So I appreciated the tension between the players, and that disappeared when they started cooperating.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, in our chat, Code Masseur says, I remember the Eamon text adventures very fondly, and I wonder if there's a way that we could actually do a live, something kind of like the Parsley Adventure, but with a foundation of something like an Eamon Adventure. That would be kind of
like
cool.
Speed run type of thing, almost.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I mean, one thing about the Parsley Adventures I ran is that I don't remember there being any randomness to it. There were no dice or anything.
Mhm.
So an Eamon Adventure would have to have that because your character has stats and the like.
Right.
Oh, I see. So, okay. Yeah.
So at that point, you're just playing D&D.
Yeah, true.
Although I read recently that the Eamon Adventurers Guild has released a D&D module based on Eamon.
Cool. So that might be interesting to play.
Cool.
So you might want to check that out.
Yep.
Link is in the show
Oh,
notes.
The just going back for a second to the D&D session that Sean ran. One thing that was kind of cool about that was that this was a scenario that he had developed in like 1982 or something like that. I mean, like this is like he did put this together, but it was vintage, like from his own youth. So
What edition of
neat.
D&D were you playing?
0.
Like D&D, like
It was
Dungeons
basic.
and Dragons, like
Yeah, it was-
basic D&D, like
Yep.
THACO and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. It was
Now,
like
THACO is wacko, so I'm not sure how much fun that could be.
I got that reference.
There's another comment in the chat about wishing there were more Hackfest entries, and I think, it might be fun to sort of promote that a little more next year. I think in the earlier years that I was there, so whatever the 2010s maybe, there were a lot of people putting together Hackfest projects. It was there were like 8, 9. And so I don't know. I mean, there's so much to do that it's actually kind of hard to find time to work on the Hackfest project. I know that I thought about doing it.
Yeah. You almost like, you want people to participate, but you almost want to also not encourage them because then they're just going to disappear in their rooms for,
Well, I feel like a lot of people do it. I like the people who are sitting in the sessions with their laptops open.
Yeah.
Are usually writing code and it's working on their Hackfest entries while they're in the sessions.
Yeah, that often.
Yeah.
I guess that often happened, but yeah.
But then they're still not paying attention, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, some people can multitask.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, it kind of probably comes and goes, but I think you're right. I think this year we didn't really do a whole ton of promoting it like at the beginning of the event. I think it was just kind of like, oh, by the way, don't forget about this, but we didn't really push it.
Well, I think also in the last 20 or 25 years even, but maybe not that long, there's definitely been in my opinion, a growing number of projects in the Apple II community that are hardware based. And we didn't really see that when Hackfest was started in 1998. That was the first Hackfest. And people weren't showing up to K-Fest with new hardware projects back then like they are now. So it's really hard to do a hardware Hackfest.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people feel like hardware is where it's at now.
I don't know. You give them, it's like, here's a breadboard, some DuPont connections, and a Pico Pi. I want to see something amazing in
Maybe
a week.
There was one year where, in addition to Hackfest, there was also KansasFest, spelled with a C, C-A-N, KansasFest, and it was to see like who could use a Pringles can to make the best Wi-Fi extender.
And I mean, one year, KansasFest made a Simon game.
Oh, right. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I think.
I don't remember
cool.
that.
Yeah, I do. Well, I mean, I think
2017.
There was there's always been a little bit of debate. I mean, like the Hackfest rules, they've relaxed a little bit, but they were fairly strict. I mean, like, so it had to be something that ran on an Apple II or a 3. It had to be like using some libraries. If it used any libraries, they had to be available 6 months in advance. You couldn't write any code in advance, and and it couldn't use any specialized hardware. So that already kind of like nails it down to a certain kind of project. So I think that Kay's Simon thing may even not have been. I mean, that was debated. It was debated at the time. I remember, like, was this Hackfest eligible? It was cool, for sure. But
Well, there were Hackfest, as I said, was founded in 1998 by Eric Shepard, aka
Right.
Sheppy, and he had all those rules that you just mentioned, Paul. That's totally accurate. And then he started not coming to Kansas Fest, and I think there was one year where Quinn was running the event. Quinn Dunkey, formerly of the Open Apple podcast, and her take was the rules are it has to be cool.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't think either approach is right or wrong. I mean, sometimes constraints breed creativity, but we got to see more diversity of projects when the contest took Quinn's approach.
I think that's true. I think it'd be better to go back more to that approach. Just whatever, as long as you're doing it at Kansas Fest, that's good enough. So.
Well, I'll be honest. I, as a member of the press, was sitting in on the Hackfest presentations when it was being judged, and I almost kind of tongue-in-cheek wanted to say, I have a Hackfest entry. I finally posted my photos from the last 5 Kansas Fests.
Yes, that was so awesome.
I did that completely at Kansas Fest, and I specifically remember Kat asking me during the pandemic, could you please post your photos from the last K-Fest, which was 2019? I miss everybody, and I need to see them again, and I'm not going to this year. And so finally, 4 years after the pandemic, I did it. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it was just, don't take like 5 years to do the 2024.
I will not. I usually wait until after Juice GS goes out because I want to see what photos I'm going to use in the magazine.
Yeah, that totally scans.
The downside is that then I lose that immediate post K-Fest momentum.
Right.
But I will try to get better at it.
One thing I wanted to mention too was that I think this might be the first, well, at least the first in any recent years, that featured speaker was also a Hackfest judge. So Rich Williams joined the Hackfest judging team, and that's pretty amazing. The guy who wrote Fid is judging your Hackfest, your whatever joystick testing code.
Yeah, fish head in disguise.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Again, that's the cool stuff. The stories behind, this is why we use this as the code name or whatever, and this is why we did this, and that's the neat stuff.
All right, Paul, fearless leader, what's next?
Yeah, if you listen to some of the previous mega podcasts from the years past, and I should say that these historically these were everybody was at Kansas Fest. There was no virtual Kansas Fest, and so on the last day, everybody would sort of get together in the little chapel that they had there and just record in a room. And you couldn't hear anybody because it was just like one microphone in a room of people talking over each other all the time. But it did feature like little games, and that was kind of fun. Nobody prepared a game for this time, but perhaps next time we can do that. Yes, I will now do something further with the reins and say we're all sleepy and we appreciate everybody.
You do this.
Yeah.
You do this.
Whoa.
So do we go around do one last plug or something?
I think we probably should do that. So any sort of last commentary, and given that the order is not changed on my screen, Ron, any final comment?
Hey, I just want to say thank you very much once again to K-Fest committee. I want to say thanks to everybody that took time out of their week to come and make things fun and cool for folks like me to kind of come and relax and enjoy just being there with friends. So if you're interested in what I'm up to, you can find me online, ronscompvids.com.
Excellent. Chris.
Yep, and just kind of echoing what Ron said, just thanks to especially all the attendees for showing up and helping out. I think we mentioned Ron and his help, but there were plenty of other attendees who also just stepped up and did whatever needed to be done, and that's great, right? Because then it helps us all, and just looking forward to seeing everybody next year, either in person or virtual. So thanks again.
Kate, any final comment?
Thanks again. Thanks everybody for coming and hanging out with us one last time. I don't want to get us demonetized. But if you want to see what I'm up to, usually Sunday afternoon at twitch.tv/LadyIluros, there's links on the Discord somewhere, I'm sure.
Excellent. Ken?
I want to say thanks to the committee for requiring negative testing for admission to KFest this year, and also for providing cookies while we waited for the test results to show up. That was a unexpected and small but meaningful gesture. I really appreciated it. I was disappointed that the vaccine requirement was on the honor system. I would prefer to be enforced, but everybody seems to have gone home safe and healthy, and we avoided a repeat of last year. So I am glad for that. So thank you for everything you contributed to make that happen. For my plug, I'll say check out a2central.com. This is a website that Sheppy founded back around 2000, in which I had the honor of reviving last year after it had been offline and putting back online over 2 decades of Apple II history and continuing to publish news and updates. It's not as comprehensive as JuiceGS because I can only spread myself so thin, but it's a nice place to put out little things that you might not have caught on Facebook or Slack or some other little piece of original news that you might not have seen anywhere. So a2central.com. It's completely free. There's no ads. There's no subscription. It's just a fun Apple II site that also has exhaustive resource directories of, like, if you're looking for somebody who sells hardware, software, apparel, YouTube videos, podcasts, all that stuff is listed on there. I think many of you are listed there in one directory or the other. Like Chris sells clothes, Ron has a YouTube channel, so does Kat. So yeah, a2central.com.
Excellent, thanks. And there's a presentation from last year at KansasFest, virtual KansasFest, about this revival too. So if you want to hear more about that, go check those videos. And where am I? I guess, you can find me at rcrpodcast.com. And I have a site at yesterbits.com, which I have, which the last updates to are probably already, retro. But I hope someday to revive that too. So, and also drop3inches.com, drop-III-inches.com. I guess with that, we can leave you to the rest of your evening, and we will see everybody next year at the next KansasFest.
What are we shouting at the end?
I don't know. I mean, maybe just KansasFest.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, until next time.
1, 2, 3.
KansasFest. Yeah.
I love how you all said it like it was a funeral dirge.
Awesome. Okay, anyway, yes, thank you everybody for making the time to do this. I think it's a worthy tradition to continue.
Retro Compute.
This has been the Open Apple Podcast. Find more episodes, read our blog, or send feedback by visiting us on the web at www.open-apple.net.
Everything gets fixed in post,
Right.
at least in the audio version.
Everything.